All right, and hello and welcome everyone. It is officially our 20th anniversary celebrations. I can't believe it. It is April the 9th, officially 2 days ago, 2020 or 2004. I opened the doors here to Potentials Realized. So this is the first of a couple of calls that we're going to do. 2 weeks today, I'm going to sit down with Ivana and we're going to talk a little bit about the last 20 years. And chances are you're seeing this because maybe you've been involved with us. Maybe you've taken one or more of our programs, engaged in our books, or even played with the many decks of visual cards or even the conversation sparker charms. So, many businesses don't get to this stage. And while it might be like, oh, it's just 20 years, 20 years in a business context that is ever changing is a pretty big celebration. So for any of you that have even made it past a 3-year mark, congratulations. Most businesses do not get to that stage. So just want to sort of level set that. Again, we're going to be doing a whole series of celebrations, really because our mandate is to provide coaching, training, consulting services, as well as experiential products for a wide variety of clients. And so today I'm taking like the Potentials Realized view, which may be a little bit bigger than what and how you've engaged with us over the years, because I've had the privilege to work across many lines of business. We are not only a one-stop shop for all things group and team coaching. I continue to do work primarily with digital entrepreneurs and growing their businesses to 5 figures, 6 figures, even 7 figures. And also another big part of the business is working with leaders and teams. So as you can appreciate, you don't do that all in 1 year. You do that across 20 years. I've always had a high interest in doing lots of diverse work. And while as a younger person, that was easier to do than it is now, I still think we've made quite an impact. So I hope that you'll join us as we celebrate this 20 years. What is interesting is a few days ago, I was asked, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? And so here's what I came up with. And if you are an entrepreneur, chances you are, you've probably been thinking about some of these things. The beauty of this work is that it allows us to incorporate our passions and find flow in the work that we do. We can create a path and legacy. And as we look back, we can start seeing accomplishments. And really, that's what this call is all about, to sort of capture part of my legacy, whether I am here 10 years from now, 20 years from now. There has been a 20-year legacy, and that has really influenced a wide variety of people. So this is one of many calls. I hope you'll join Ivana and I in 2 weeks when we're going to look back at the last 20 years, specifically at group coaching evolution. And as I think about my legacy, I think that will be one of the pieces that I'm most well known for. Whether or not it's the piece that I'm proudest of, I think it will always be my legacy. And so very much, I hope that you'll join us for that sit down conversation, which I'm hoping, and I hope Ivana thinks the same way, it may be the first of many. We're playing around, not just playing around, but there will be probably a new podcast coming to the surface later on in 2024. So here's the world. Here's the world of Potentials Realized, right? Until 2 years ago, it was a solopreneurial business. I then brought on our 3 team leads, Kathy, Rita, and Ivana. And they have really helped me further anchor a lot of these different areas. Some in part from interest, but a lot in part by client request. This business continues to be anchored along this very busy but important 6 areas of the world: leadership, remote entrepreneurs, even before the world understood what remote work meant, support to coaches, specifically support to group and team coaching, and then a whole slew of services dating back 2 decades now to virtual work, virtual facilitation. And so I like to always go back to this because often people will say, well, why are you writing a new book? Well, you may not be tying into the book, but it has anchor into other work that I've done with many different types of clients, whether they've been small startups or very large world-changing organizations. It's really exciting to look back at our world of work. So I wanted to give us an opportunity. I brought us back to the 2018 word search. And this is an opportunity for you just to take a moment to see what words jump off the screen. So we've got Rita, we've got Ivana. I'm going to get you to just pick up your annotate and highlight what are the words that you are seeing on the screen. So grab your pen. Of course, what's jumping out to me, I see collaboration, which is a
Mhm.
big part of the work that we've done over the years. I think what's exciting is, this is the moment in time of collaboration. We've got other words there like results. Hybrid is buried in here, which is interesting to look back a couple of years later, as is some other areas. So just wanted to give you an idea, and I'm just going to read through these because I think they are part and parcel of our world. Styles, creating a pause, giving or creating connection, hosting conversation, looking at training and leadership and growth. There's collaboration again, excellence, writing, teamwork, goals, reflection, podcasts, and I'm looking forward to podcast 2.0, results, sprints, questions, remote, teams, hybrid, groups, and focus. So thank you for sharing and getting into that. Let's just see what drew your eye. Ivana, what drew your eye here?
Three things. And it was funny because we were totally in sync. Collaboration. And then while I was striking through collaboration, I saw conversation and results. Those were the ones that really stood out at me. So Rita, you're on fire.
Yeah,
She's
Rita, what
seeing
are
so
you seeing
many.
there? We'll get you to
And you're on
unmute.
mute.
And maybe she can, maybe she can't. She's in annotate. She's in
I think because
annotate
I
mode.
was in annotate, it wouldn't let me unmute for a second. So, see, I couldn't see results because my annotate was blocking it, nor could I see hybrid now. So the first ones that came up were teams, writing, then growth, then groups, then focus, and now hybrid and results because it's not blocking it.
There's hybrid.
Yeah, but my screen was blocking it, so now I can't do it.
Right at the bottom.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh,
again, I think it's sort of interesting, right? What jumps out, and there might be something in that space of what is meaningful, what is
found
important.
one.
What did you
Sorry.
find?
Podcast.
Podcast. There you go. There you go.
Mm.
Well, what is interesting looking back at 20 years is the platforms have changed, the world has changed, but you know what? Like, I think many of these elements still hold true, whether it's the pause, whether it's working with different styles, whether it's talking about conversations and connection. So just notice what your eye gets drawn to. And I'm going to stop my share I will save a photo of this so we can put it on our Facebook or whatever. Actually, I'm not really on Facebook that much these days. We'll put it on our LinkedIn, and maybe I'll even pop it up on TikTok, which is my favorite social channel right now because it's a little fun and quirky, right? Like, I think the world is very serious. So how do we create a little bit of fun and excitement, which is why I started this business more than 20 years ago, thinking about, wouldn't it be fun to work for myself? And it is many days. So with that, I'm going to just clear. Let's see if we can clear all of this. And of course I can't. So I'm going to stop our share by seeing all of us. So let's just end. Oh, I'm not going to end the meeting now. I'm not going to. It is really one of those days. Let me just stop the share. There we go. Okay, I can see Ivana now, and we're going to go back in. Okay, so let us continue because I want to share a couple of things. I had Fatima, who does a lot of work in the backdrop of this business, do up a little timeline because I thought it was interesting to really not to humble brag, not to toot our own horn, but to talk about the evolution of this business. Because for some of you, you might be interested in this as you continue to arc forward. Now, again, there are three main lines of business. There is our work around group and team coaching. There is a whole line of business around entrepreneurial support, business coaching, all of that. And then there is the leadership and teamwork element. And so I had sent these off. Just I wanted to take a look back at, how has this business really been built? And one of the themes that I want to talk to, and I'll come back to this in a moment, is through experimentation. Some of you have found your way into the Morning Inquiry, which is a series I host over on TikTok at Group Coach, We're into day 42, I think, in the series. But experimentation and really as it says in Oxford Languages, the action or process of trying out new ideas, methods, or activities has been instrumental in starting what we do. And I want to leave that because there is a bit of a world that we live in. And I'm going to share our manifesto that I came up with about 3 or 4 months ago, because I think this really speaks to how do you build a sustainable business over time. So I wanted to just take you for a little bit of a drive and highlight how this business has been built through the mantras that we talk about all the time, i.e., daily steps and consistent action, creating momentum. And so back to 2004, I opened the doors virtually, walked in actually to a building that was not far from where I live right now, surprisingly, to register my business. And it was a big step. I had spent 2 years sort of facilitating. Do I call it potentials realized? Do I call it something else? How will the name date? I spent many long flights between Europe, where I was kept getting called by my boss to replace her for these short stints, in the Caribbean. So I was constantly traveling the Atlantic Ocean. And what else do you do in a 9-hour flight? But think about, hey, what is this next stage of my business? Because I really don't want to keep flying around the world. That was my thinking in 2004. So finally pulled the ripcord and said, you know what? I might as well go do what you're paying other people to do, start my own company, and open the doors here. Spent the summer up north, which is where I'm heading back to in a few weeks, actually thinking about what could this business look like and what could the impact be. I knew that the impact was going to be the ripple effect. It was going to be how do we expand a coaching conversation, one conversation at a time. And the first program I launched in the fall of 2024 was something called Workshop and Retreat Essentials. I knew that there was a need in the coaching world for people to bring people together. For 2 years at this point, I'd been told by my coach trainers and people across the industry, you really can't coach groups and teams. That was the mantra back in 2004. And so I figured, well, I'm going to see what interest there is, and launched the first Workshop and Retreat Essentials in October or September. I think the September of 2004. I had a good handful of folks. Again, it was like what we do now with Group Coaching Essentials, a maximum of 8 people. We spent 4 weeks in those days, plus an extra bonus call, to look at what could you be designing in your own business? What kind of workshop? What kind of retreat? And it was a lot of fun. And by 2005, I realized there's actually probably a market here for expanding your conversation. So a few weeks before my son was born in May of 2005, I launched my first ebook. And that was a challenge on the part of my coach, who had asked me at the time, what do you want to do next, Jen? You've had this amazing career. You started this business. Like, what haven't you done? And I said, I want to be a writer. And she was a writer. That's why I'd hired her as a coach, because I was like, I want to sort of write books. And so she challenged me a couple months before my son was born, while I'm birthing this new business, year one as well, to start the daily practice of writing 500 words a day. And what came out of that 500 words a day about a month later was what is still being sold in 2024, the Engaging Exercises for Teams and Groups ebook. Chances are some of you have this in your hard drive. I have sold thousands of copies of this ebook over the last 20 years. And it's really geared for coaches who just want something that they could put in their back pocket. It includes things like word search. It includes things like exercise instructions, but it's still around. And in doing that, even as my own child, my own little baby was coming into the world, I got this idea, what if I do something new every year? Obviously your first year of business, you're creating so many things. And so even back then I said, every year my commitment is to do something new. So I want to take you through these because I think there's some instruction, again, from a business level, right? For you that are coaches, you're going to find this interesting to see how our whole profession has changed. But as a business, I think there's some really important lessons that you could be hearing. So 2005, now navigating being a mom, being a new mom, which I always say is harder to do. Even like you can lead teams in the UN through jungles and conflict, but it's hard to be a great mom. And, I look back now, I think I've been able to do both. Luckily with the business, right? Like we can get flexibility in a business that I might not have had in a corporate environment. 2006, January, had started getting all these requests as Matthew, my son, was so little. Jennifer, we love workshop retreat essentials, but we want to now like bring it into coaching. Can you do something? So January 2006, I joined with, I think it was 4 or 5 coaches joined me in that first month, wrote out group coaching essentials as you see it today. It has not really changed. I knew by that point of running workshop and retreat essentials for 2 years, coaches really needed 3 things. They needed best practices around design, marketing, and implementing programming. And now we finally had group coaching essentials. 2006, very revolutionary program, raised the eyebrows of most coaches. What, you mean you can coach a group? And while we think today, what do you mean? That was where we were back then. And so really I found that it was a lot of amazing professionals. We had people from all over the world taking that monthly program in 2006. And that's something I'm really proud of. 18 years later, we have run this program for small cohorts of anywhere from 3 or 4 all the way. And in the pandemic, I had groups sometimes of 14 people, group coaching essentials every month, if not sometimes twice a month. And that speaks to how much this industry has changed over the years. In my own work at that time, I was doing a lot of work within the formal education sector. And one of my boss, who was a dean of a post-secondary school, said, Jen, I love the fact that you are a coach. You're not only a great instructor, but you're a coach. Can you do work with our entrepreneurial students? Like you seem to have something really magic about helping people get clear on what they want. I was like, well, I think that's just good coaching skills. But yeah, hey, if you want me to do some coaching with your business students, I'm more than happy to do it. Because to be honest, I didn't want to keep leading these 30-hour training courses. They were so boring. And so that led me actually, starting in 2005, probably a good 300 to 400 hours a year of coaching groups of entrepreneurs. By 2006, around the same time, that summer that Group Coaching Essentials had launched, a colleague of mine, a former colleague of mine, had been positioned in an organization that had the mandate to equip female entrepreneurs new to Canada with entrepreneurial skills. And she was a program coordinator. She had 9 months of curriculum to fill. And she was like, Jen, can you come in and can you do 30 hours with our women entrepreneurs startups? I was like, absolutely. And that cut my teeth, literally taking what we were talking about conceptually in group coaching essentials, what I was doing in a corporate arena, bringing it into the entrepreneurial space. So I had these 2 really amazing laboratories. And I think that's something to be noticing in your own work. Where are your labs? For me, the lab was in the post-secondary institutional level. It was also with these amazingly passionate group of 2 groups of women entrepreneurs who were new to this country. 15 different languages, 15 different cultures in each of those groups, and 2 cohorts in very different parts of Toronto. So I would get on the bus and I would go and meet with these 2 groups for 2 weeks at a time. And as I experimented with certain things in group 1, they would land. I would take the same tools 2 weeks later to the next group, and it would have a totally different impact. And that really helped me understand that, you know what, in this arena of group coaching, especially, you can do the same thing twice, but it's never going to have the same impact. And that led me by 2007 to launch the 90-day Biz Success group coaching public program. I then took the best of what we saw in the educational sector, in the entrepreneurial startup sector, and brought it to my own 90-day program and really loved working that. When I say working it, offering it multiple times a year. And many of you are probably in that first 5 years of your business going, I just love running my own programming. And I did, and we do. And at some point though, it's enough, right? Like, how many times do you keep running things? And so by 2008, I was starting to experiment with a very sort of radical in those days idea of doing retreats, not just in person, but virtually. I had realized with my son being so young that I was a mom and I needed to really be, responsible for being around and not jaunting around the world. Some of you have been watching what has been happening in Haiti. And I found myself in Haiti when my son was 18 months old and getting off the plane to do some work for the UN, knowing the risks. But as soon as I was handed a bulletproof vest and my blue helmet, I realized I couldn't continue to do what I used to do in my former world of work. I'm a mom. I'm a caretaker now, even 20 years later. I can't do what my heart says, go and work in the midst of chaos. And I wanted to keep innovating. And so my innovation in 2008 was taking retreats online. As a young mom, I didn't want to spend the weekend in beautiful retreat locations wondering, how is my son and is he being cared for okay? I knew he would be, but I wanted to spend time with him. And so around that time, I was speaking, and this man came up to me in the audience afterward and said, I really enjoyed your presentation. It was an HR conference. And he said, have you ever considered writing a book? And I was like, well, maybe. And I thought back to my first coach who had been challenging me to keep on writing. And he's like, well, here's my card, give me a call. And so I gave a call a few weeks later, and he said they were looking for new books, needed to go through a whole proposal process, and submitted that proposal at the end of 2008. As he looked at it with his team at what is Wiley, over the first of many, many meals that would happen over the next few years, he said, like, there's something really unique in this. And so, true to his word, a year later, he said, it takes about a year to get a book, from start, conceptual approval through to publication. And no doubt, like literally December 22nd, 2009, my first box of effective group coaching showed up on my doorstep. And very shortly thereafter, it wound up in stores. And it was the world's first book on group coaching. And I was so proud. I am still proud of seeing how this book has changed the way coaches look at the field of coaching. And so if you have a copy of Effective Group Coaching, well, some chapters I now get like, oh, the section on virtual is dated. It is, but here's the thing with group coaching. The principles are always the same. It doesn't matter whether we're in 2004 or 2024, coaching is coaching is coaching. And our vehicles have changed. My vision and my love would be to actually republish that as a second edition. The challenge of being a traditionally published author is you do not have creative control over that. And so at some point soon, I will contractually be able to buy the copyright for my own writing from that publisher, and we may have a second edition, but we are not quite at that temporal time yet. So I get that question all the time, and I think it's important to sort of note it. So 2010, group coaching was really starting to show up, as was team coaching. And so in that winter, I introduced the first group and team coaching intensive. Some of you may have joined me in Toronto. Up north, I ran that program for about 7 years, twice a year physically. And we had amazing coaches who are now leading in their own right, leading big contracts, small contracts. And that year, 2010, I also realized that people were hungry for mentor coaching, not in a one-on-one, but in a group format. And I had started ICF mentor coaching in 2007 when I got my PCC, and realized that there were people who wanted to come together. And in fact, I think one of my most enjoyable parts of the work that I still do today are with our mentor coaching groups, because there is such learning in getting your skills crisp and sharp as you go. So we're only in the first 6 years. I'm going to zoom ahead a little bit, just in saying, every year, here's one of the mantras, and you've seen it in Coaching Business Builder: daily steps plus consistent action equals momentum. And so as time went along, introduced one new program or product or service every year. 2011, it was a facilitation skills intensive. Then the next year, it was a group program toolkit. I would say the group program toolkit still sells online at our Potentials Realized store. It's it's a digital resource that gives you tools to actually use in your group coaching. And that led also around that time for Wiley to reach back to me saying, will you do a second book? Will you do a second book on group coaching? I said, I'm not going to just do a book on group coaching. I want to talk about team coaching as well, because for most of us in the realm of coaching, many, as I call it, very much it is about both groups and teams. And so that book came out in 2013, and you may be very aware of That book, it may have been either effective group coaching or from one to many may have been either a recommended or required textbook. It's still being used in universities. It's still being used in coach training schools because there really, other than my book and Ginger Cockerham's book, there is no other resource available. And so, that's an exciting piece. And it's still, both books have dated very well, other than the virtual piece, which led me in 2017 to release Effective Virtual Conversations, a book that the traditional publisher was not interested in. And so I do like to say, stay tuned because I continue to write. 2017, we had launched our Conversation Sparker cards, which turned 10 years this year. As many of you know, not only my affinity, but now it's part of fabric of the group coaching world, bringing in visuals into our work. And so that was launched 2014, followed by Virtual Facilitation Essentials, almost coming up to 10 years when people were like, you can really connect with a group online? Oh, yes, you can. So that has led us to the final edge of the pathway. Thank you for holding on. But, last 5-7 years, really excited to keep innovating in different ways. 2018 released not only Coaching Business Builder, which I know thousands of you have purchased that book, which is exciting. We're continuing to use the Coaching Business Builder in both our Coaching Biz Growth Lab, which continues bi-weekly throughout the year. And it's going to be part of the Amplify program, which is coming up in May of this year. Also that year, I launched Plan, Do, Track, which was a guide for remote and virtual professionals. How that came about was my corporate clients who were not coaches said, I want a planner like this. Can you do one for us? And so Plan, Do, Track came out. At one point, pre-pandemic, it was actually for sale at Walmart. I always find that such an interesting little factoid as a writer. Like, where do your books wind up? Effective Group Coaching has been translated into Polish. From One to Many has been translated into, I think it's either Mandarin or Cantonese. You can find it on Amazon. And I think that also is really, really interesting. So 2019 was a bit of a pivotal year. My passion, again, after many years of working just in group and team coaching, was really turning towards my corporate clients and entrepreneurial clients who have always been remote and hybrid and virtual. And you would have heard probably our Remote Pathways podcast, which I co-hosted with Michelle Mullins. That year, little did we know what was around the corner. And I have to say that 2020, 2021, 2022 were probably the most exciting years of this business. Not only the remote working white paper coming out before the pandemic really was a pandemic, launching the 60-day Biz Accelerator, launching, or really doubling down on the year-end programming. So moving from a 1-hour format to 3 hours. And that led into the sprint cycle. So many of you joined me for the 21 for 21, which were 21-day sprints of 21 working minutes, co-working minutes a day. And we saw amazing things happen in that 700-minute window of months where people did new websites, they did new proposals. Someone even wrote and edited a book during that time. So I think that I want to spotlight because we're still in an era where co-working has come into its own. 2021, it was something we were still experimenting with. And so Reconnecting Workspaces 90-day guide for success are still being used by the coaches we've certified and also by organizations, including the federal governments of both sides of the border here in Canada and in the US. Those books have changed the way people are leading. And it excites me to continue writing in that vein because the challenge and opportunity of the evolving world of work is not ending. These books have also led to 2 TED Talks, right? And many of you know at least of one, but 2021, I led a TED Talk from what at that moment was done at the northernmost point of Canada, up north in Muskoka. That has been surpassed by now, but at least I could say that was then. And that was my first one, Virtual Remote Hybrid Checklist, followed by a year and a half later, one done physically in Toronto, Coaching Teams Through Chaos. And I think Coaching Teams Through Chaos, we've only started scratching the surface of that whole area. Teams are still struggling in 2024. Work styles are getting augmented. And many of you have participated in our group and team coaching superpower quiz, the second of 2 quizzes we have to help you understand who you are as a team or group coach. And that was pretty like significant work moving through the pandemic, where literally, I was very privileged to work and get to connect with tens of thousands of people over those 3 years. And that led us last year to formalize what many of you felt were like, how do I go along and learn with you, to our pathway, which I want to spend a little bit of time on today. And then this year, my pet project has been returning back to the core of the Conversation Sparker series, but this year introducing the charms, which many of you have now purchased. In fact, I just sent off on Friday 65 sets to a coach training school, and that was really exciting to have such a big order go out. So you might go, wow, that's a lot of stuff. But one item a year builds up over time. And that's why I wanted to spend some time today getting you thinking about what's possible for you. Because here our mandate has not changed. And I just want to wrap up the end of the call with some of this manifesto. And while some of you might think that manifesto is a little militaristic, I still see myself as a bit of a revolutionary. I was very influenced by the writings in Central and South America in the 70s and 80s, where radical change happened in totally changing the way democracies were built in terms of equalization of women's voices. And I don't know if we've really moved that far some days in 2024. But I wrote this a few months ago to really anchor what we do here at Potentials Realized. And it is always and will continue to be about better conversations for enhanced results and relationships. So coaches, leaders, and teams can create your ripple effect of change in collectively exploring issues that are the most important to us and our global future. We are a one-stop shop for all things related to group and team coaching. In our work, we value a lot of things that might to some feel contradictory, and they are, but they're not. So we value both individual reflection and collective dialogue. We do value the tensions which exist in a world of dichotomy, where there are many sides to any issue. And I think that's an important area. If you are noticing that there is too much, then that might be an area of reflection to really address the complex challenges that we're faced with as the human species right now. We need to think differently. We need to be able to hold tensions and dichotomies. And so with that, we value both action and awareness and learning from and with each other. We also value at the business deep connections that are created in and across space and virtually. And it is about these daily steps and consistent action in creating the momentum needed for change. Big part of my work right now is not only supporting entrepreneurs, but also intrapreneurs and organizations, which help to leverage creativity, innovation, and learning. And it is about the art and science, about the creative, empirical, and sometimes magical elements anchoring us as global beings. And I think yesterday was one of those pieces where, whether you call it celestial or magical, people were connected throughout the eclipse here in North America in ways that they may never have felt in their lifespan. But if you experienced it yesterday, right, that's something that we want to look at. How are we all connected? Because we really are on so many levels. And in establishing this business 20 years ago and coming up with this notion of, I want my mandate and my logo to be the ripple effect, the belief system is the following. We believe that the power of the collective is bigger than the individual. We believe that in order to solve the most pressing, wicked challenges, that the power of many is essential. We believe that coaching and conversations are able to support individuals, teams, and groups, and even entire nations in envisioning and creating their own future. We believe that learning and change occurs when in dialogue with each other. And we believe that everyone in the world needs access to coaching so that they can realize their own potential. We believe that the ripple effect is created by teaching others coaching skills through dialogue and intensive team days and retreats, and via play and the experiential process. And I'd be open to having dialogue and discourse with any of you. You might think some of these are very lofty, and I always like to remind people that my world today is not my world from yesterday. And in envisioning, still an emotional space, in envisioning this work, I think about the um, amount of conversations that have been changed all over this globe. So with that, I'm going to leave the manifesto right there and invite you to join us for other community events. So 2 weeks today, Ivana and I are going to sit down, and in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we kick off the Amplify Mastermind. Some of you have joined us for the pathway or parts of the pathway, and I just really want to draw your attention because so many people every week are talking, I want to get the ACTC. Our courses are eligible for the coursework in your advanced credential of team coaching. We continue to be an ICF CCE approved service provider. Some of you may start in group coaching essentials. Some of you may start with team coaching essentials. We have several thousand of people who have done both of those courses now, and maybe even the advanced team and group coaching practicum. Beyond that, we know that 30 hours is not enough. The evolution of a group and team coach is ongoing. And that's where our intermediate courses come in, activating your group and team coaching superpowers. It's 14 CCEs, it runs a couple times a year, and we explore your range so that you're able to use all the skills at your disposal to work with the very diverse teams and groups that exist in rooms, physically, virtually, and hybrid. And right now we're running the coaching diverse teams and groups through work styles. I've really enjoyed this program. It's offered about 4 times a year, 4 times a year. And I've been running it now since 2022 with the support of Rita. And I love this team, the work styles program, because it really gets us thinking about the teams and the groups that we're working with and what is the diversity that exists within that space. As we've experimented, we notice that some people are really attracted to talking about co-coaching essentials, while others of you are jumping across the pathway to course number 10. And that final course on the pathway is open to anyone. And it's called NELA, Neuroscience Learning Experiential Approaches. And that program, NELA, will be coming back in May for its first of 2 deliveries. So give us a call, right? We have regular conversation touch points. You can find them at groupcoachingessentials.ca and just scroll to the bottom and book a call with either Ivana or myself to talk about what is, next for you on your learning cycle. We've been around for 20 years. I hope we will be around for many, many more to serve you and to serve your conversations, because the business is going to continue to grow through this 1% rule to business development. We want to keep working with you to define and refine your vision, to prepare for that, to develop your action plan, to get the support you need so that you can take the small steps, get it out in the world to test, retest, learn again, iterate and act so you can achieve your goals. And interestingly enough, this is what I anchored 6 years ago in the release of Coaching Business Builder. It's what still is our backbone each and every day. So thank you for joining us. We look forward to serving you. Ivana, Rita, any final words as we go to wrap up today's call?
Sure. Come join us at Coaching Diverse Teams. It's a fun program.
All right. And Ivana, any thoughts, reflections from you?
Yeah, just to share, I'm looking forward to the conversation in 2 weeks because I know in our programs, what's really appreciated and valued is pulling the curtain back. And so we're going to pull the curtain back on the evolution of potentials realized, but also the evolution and growth that you have embarked on in this journey, because you have been the maven of group coaching. And it's really important to kind of get your insights, both on what you see coming, because you are far ahead of most, and also what your learnings have been along the way to help our coaches and to help our leaders really embark on this journey, because it is a journey. And so I'm really excited about that. And, this is the pathway we offer in our programs. And so it's going to be exciting to share and reveal more about you and your journey that's brought us to this point.
I hope that this call today has sort of inspired some of you to think about, what is your pathway? What is your legacy? What do you want your business to look like? Because it's not anything that I have done that's, well, yes, it's unique to me, but it's about consistency. And in a
Mhm.
world that changes, consistency is everything to business success. Just before this call, I got off the phone with the government here, and I had to do some renewals for our business. And it was interesting. They've made it so complex, and so complex that you really can't just register within, like, you just take a moment. You'd step into an office, you'd pay your money, and you were out the door in 5 minutes. I've now spent 4 hours plus more phone calls. And I said to the lady on the phone, I said, isn't this supposed to make it easy? And she's apologizing. She's like, you're going to have to wait 5 more days to get the company key and da 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 da. So, I think a lot of people throw in the towel a little early because it's not easy to run a business, but the payoff, back to why do we do what we do, right? And I
Mhm.
will go back time and time again to the freedom and the legacy and the satisfaction that I get in the creativity that's afforded in the work that I do as a coach and in the work that I do as a business owner. It is really, not for everyone, but for those of you that are thinking, do I start a business or do I continue? It's often at that moments, because I've had this many times, when you're ready to throw in the towel, that
Mhm.
those growth edges happen. And I will just share one final story because I think it is really insightful. It was 2008. I'd been running group coaching essentials for about 3 years at that time. And I was getting ready for that speaking engagement where I met the editor. Little did I know, I was thinking, oh, should I keep doing this? Like, it's a nice program, it's having impact, but I'm just not seeing the growth. And I was like, maybe I should just let Ginger Cockrum keep teaching her program, thinking maybe she'd be there forever. And as I was, this was literally as I was preparing for this speaking engagement where the editor showed up, that became a huge shift in my lifespan. We never can see ahead, right? And so with that, really be thinking about, what are you committed to? What is your manifesto? Because if we can do that every day, hey, who else can help us do that? So with that, everyone, thank you for being here. We look forward to our next point of contact, whether you're with us in a live call, whether you're watching a video. Please like, share, subscribe, as most people would say in today's world, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. All right. Thanks, everyone. Be
Thank
well.
you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thanks.
Bye,
Bye.
Bye.
everyone.